Dad is flown across the ocean.
So, watching any TV lately?
Yeah, I watching HBO Game of Thrones.
And you watched an HBO Game of Thrones?
I did.
One of 50 or so episodes?
Yes.
Any one in particular?
The finale.
The very finale. So you you warged into the future and saw how the show's going to end.
Oh, no. The finale of this season.
The seventh season.
Yes.
Yes. We should probably just put it out there right now that we're going to be talking about it. And I can't guarantee when we'll ever stop. No, I can't guarantee exactly as of right now when we're recording this when it'll stop. So if you aren't caught up, don't listen to that part. And I'll put it in the show description when it's safe to not hear it. Or to listen again.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So that's clearly something that's important. We're going to be talking about that. But let's start it off right and tell people that we are the Just Enough Trope podcast. I'm your host, Caliban, joined as always by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Mika and Hannah.
And if I haven't said it recently, I want to remind you that we have many, many shows. We're growing by leaps and bounds on the Just Enough Trope network, and you can find those shows by going to our links at the Just Enough Trope page at justenoughtrope.com. But I'll just tell you right now, we have Enterprising Individuals. It is a Star Trek discussion podcast with discussions with Star Trek authors and writers and stars, actors, and all that sort of thing, talking about specific episodes of Star Trek. Also, our new show, Craft to Services, is at crafttoservices.com, and it is a movie discussion show. Our second episode has come out recently, and it is about the horrible, terrible, in quotes, film Ballistic X vs. Sever, the worst reviewed film ever made. So check that out as well. And that's it. Plugs over. So what are we doing today? We're going to talk some news.
Yes.
As per usual. We're going to talk about Game of Thrones, obviously the finale of the 7th season and all the revelations that are involved in that. And it's Comic Book Club this week. We're talking about a very special selection. One of my favorite comics, and I'm sure you love it too, Astro City.
Yes.
Astro City by Kurt Busiek, who we spoke to last year at Emerald City Comic Con. And we talked a little bit about Astro City, but I wish we'd talked more. So then I'd have something to put into the show along with that. But you can search through our backlog for our not enterprising. Whew, I got blown away by that Game of Thrones finale.
I know.
It's got me all scrambled. No, you can search for our 2016 show from Emerald City Comic Con and find our interview with Kurt there. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Cal.
You're blown away too.
I am blown away.
I know you are. What
Um,
am I?
It was a great episode. And
What?
Okay.
We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Okay. Let's talk about some news. Speaking of TV, we got TV news. It turns out that Marvel TV is interested in developing a, quote, Jessica Jones-esque, unquote, show.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't they already have a Jessica Jones-esque show in Jessica Jones?
It's literally called Jessica Jones. Yeah, exactly. They say that they want to do a, quote, female-focused show.
Okay.
Yeah. So did they know that did they step out of a time portal or something like that?
I don't know.
Do they know that they have a show called Jessica Jones?
Do they just want something like this? Not this, but something like this.
Yeah.
Is that what they're saying?
Well, I guess. Senior VP of their programming, Karim Zarek, a name that I have come to hate because I see it at the end of every episode of Luke Cage and Iron Fist, two shows that I'm not enjoying, but nonetheless, I'm doing my best to complete them. And he is, in charge of pretty much all Marvel TV, and that's not just Netflix, that's across, everything.
Okay.
So they're looking to develop a new female-focused show with ABC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's all we know.
Okay. I sure missed that Peggy Carter, gotta tell you.
Yep. They had a female-focused show on ABC.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Also, he said that comedy is something they really want to go into.
With Marvel?
Yeah. Don't you guys already do? Your stuff's already funny.
Yeah.
That's the Marvel's whole thing.
Yeah.
That people are, just because we can't leave ourselves alone, are now saying that that's their problem, like Marvel's too funny. And it's like, well, look at the alternative.
It's
awful.
It's either dark and gritty and not funny at all, or
Yeah, it's awful. So anyway, this guy, I don't think he has any idea what he's talking about. He clearly doesn't know what's going on in his own shop if he's let the Iron Fist show go out the door. So we should have a review. You know, The Defenders is out. We should have a review of it. We don't.
No, we
Because
don't.
we've fallen behind on Marvel TV. So maybe we can do... you know what's good?
What?
You get this thing where, okay, so yeah, as a broadcaster, you know, as a news person, if you will, I want to bring fresh reviews. Like we're talking about the Game of Thrones finale an hour after we've seen it. So
right.
What do you want from me? But there's something to say for, let's review it maybe 6 months down the line.
Okay.
Cooler heads can prevail. We're not all just hyped up about the fact that we just saw it, and we can go, well, here's an honest opinion. We've had time to think about this.
Right.
So maybe we'll cover that somewhere down the line. But yeah, that's the news from Marvel TV. Guardians is really successful, and so they want to bring a comedy show to TV. Nothing definite has been declared.
Okay.
Yeah. New Warriors? I'm assuming that's going to be funny.
I mean, yeah,
that's
I
in
would
development
think so.
right now. Yeah. And supposedly Damage Control is supposed to be in development.
And that's about the Damage Control
Yes.
team.
I think the lawsuit from Charlotte Fullerton and the estate, though, of Dwayne McDuffie is going to slow that down a little bit.
Okay.
Because they are currently suing for, you know, unpaid
Rights.
monies and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Not great. So get all your shit together, Summer. Put it in a bag. Take it to the shit shop. Get your shit together. Come on, Marvel TV. Get it together. Because you've got competitors, you know.
Yes.
DC is not going to let up. They're still coming forward. More news on the Titans show front.
Yeah.
A lady named Anna Diop has been cast as Starfire.
Okay.
She'll be one of the regulars, or one of the leads on the Titans show. So that's a little more information that we've got.
All right.
She joins Tegan Croft, who we announced earlier was cast as Raven. So there you go. I know they're not the question for you. I know they're not the Teen Titans, and Anna Diop certainly looks young, but she's like late 20s. She's like 20, 28 or something like that.
Okay.
So, but and that Tegan girl is like really young. It's like one of her first roles.
Wow.
She's 18, 19. So,
what's going on with that?
I don't know.
I mean, I guess if you look young, it doesn't matter.
Sure, right. Ask Moaning Myrtle.
Yeah.
That actress is like 40, 45, and she keeps getting these roles. If you got it, use it. But I don't know. One other thing I don't really like is everything. No, is the fact that she's an African-American woman.
Okay.
I think she's American. And we've still got this thing going on where, sure, they're increasing the diversity, but they're never, it's more of a problem of the structure of these shows. The Inhumans, for instance, cast, what's his name? The guy that's in everything, lives in Hawaii, he was in Lost, played Miles Teller, or whatever, not Miles Teller. I wish it was Miles Teller. The character named Miles on Lost. He's in a bunch of stuff. He's in he's a J.J. Abrams guy because he's in all the Star Wars movies.
Sure.
Whatever. And then they cast another guy who was an Asian guy as Triton, the green-skinned fish guy.
Yeah.
And they cast a black man as Gorgon. The weird side characters are minorities. And it's like, guys, that's literally minorities.
Right.
Like, the two leads of the show are, you know, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant people that live on the moon. You know, it's just
right.
And that's more of a structure of like, that's the kind of stories that like white writers tell. But I'm tired of this, like, you know, rainbow washing. Like, he's green, cast a black guy. You know, he's orange, cast an Asian guy.
Right.
And it's kind of like Starfire, literally orange.
Right.
And they get a black actress.
Right.
You don't have an opinion. You better say something. Don't leave me hanging out here.
I think you have a point, and I mean, I think that this also happens with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Assuming that, well, you want to run that down?
I do.
Peter Quill, whitest white guy that ever whited.
Yep.
Yeah, Gamora's green.
Yep.
Drax is, what is he's like Filipino or something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah. Vin
He's
Diesel
gray.
is a Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
The only safety you've got there is the voice of Rocket is the other whitest guy that ever whited.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. You want to keep going?
Mantis. Don't forget about Mantis.
Oh, Mantis. Yeah, Mantis, a Korean woman.
Yeah.
This is fun. We've made a new game. The Avengers, all white. That doesn't work. What else you got? Well, we did the Inhumans already.
Black Panther.
Yeah.
He's the only.
Well, Black Panther is that's the antidote to my point. That's what I'm talking about. Like that is a story about a black character played by a black guy, a full cast of black people, and then the Hobbit shows up just for fun.
Right.
So I want more of that.
Right.
I don't want the come on, my white wife. Oh, you're so funny, Asian guy. All right, see you later. Go.
Right.
I just feel like it makes me uncomfortable.
I understand, and it's like trying to say
because I don't know if what the situation is, but like traditionally, Robin or Nightwing at least is a part of the Titans, right?
Yes.
Make Nightwing black. He can be black.
Sure.
Why not?
I don't see why not.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have some diversity where it's
no!
not just
Spider-Man's not black. You son of a bitch. That's why people flip out.
Yeah, but have some diversity where it's not just like, here's a green-skinned person, so let's make them Asian. Or,
they have to be Asian.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Little skeevy.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of black people not getting their due, it looks like Michael K. Williams, you remember, Omar coming, yo.
Oh, Omar, yeah.
From The Wire. He was cast and was in the Han Solo movie. And, Han Solo, that's right.
Yeah.
And he's been cut.
Why?
Due to reshoots, his character has been eliminated from the film.
Oh, that sucks.
Shrug. You can't hear me. I'm shrugging, listeners.
Because yeah.
Because
Okay.
you're not saying anything. So just continuing to shrug. I'm vibrating.
All right. It sucks because he's a good actor and he shouldn't.
And it's also bad when the grandpa of all the whitest men in the world, Ron Howard, comes on to shoot the show and decides he's not important. I never thought of him as. I know that he's done a little comedy, but I don't think of him as a big improviser. But losing Lord and Miller, was he a big part of their vision for the film or something like that?
Maybe.
Did they just have him out there as like a comedy character or something?
He could have been out there as a
I mean,
comedy
things
character.
get lost. People get cut out of movies sometimes when they get re-edited.
Sure.
But Andy Garcia in Passengers. But, I mean, just the fact that he's completely gone, it's just weird.
It is weird.
And racist. I don't know if it's racist. I'm not saying that for sure. Yeah, okay, so one more thing about TV. So this is out there. This is just a rumor, but somebody is saying, people are saying, that Bradley Walsh has been cast as Jodie Whittaker's companion as the 800th Doctor.
The 13th Doctor?
13th Doctor, whatever she is.
Are we saying 13th because we're not counting the War Doctor?
No, we never were because they always say that Capaldi's 12, so...
Okay.
Yeah, she's 13.
Okay. All right. Well, good. I'm glad that she has a male companion.
I guess.
What do you mean?
I don't know. This is another one of those. You get this sometimes. It was like Catherine Tate, who turned out to be great in my opinion, but was known before she was a joke casting in the Runaway Bride or whatever as like,
right.
Oh, I know her. I'm British and she's a comedian who nobody has heard of off the shores of the British Isles. This is the same thing with him. Like he's like a quiz show host.
Okay.
And I think he was on Coronation Street, something like another one of those shows that we don't get over here.
Okay.
So like British people are going to know who he is, but I don't know who he is.
I have no idea who he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stunt cast one of these things, man. I've joked endlessly about the whole, Dylan from 90210, but cast Dylan from 90210 or something like that.
How funny would that be?
Jason Priestley is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bobby Joe, the companion. So anyway, that is not for sure at all, but apparently he has worked with Chris Chibnall on other projects before. Chris Chibnall, the new showrunner of Doctor Who. So
okay.
He's getting his friends in there, and that never goes wrong.
That always goes
Just
right.
ask Michael K. Williams.
Yeah.
Right. Moving into movie news, it looks like the Joker will have an origin story movie.
Why?
Nope, nobody has asked that. You're the first person to ask that question. We don't
Okay.
ask why. We just ask when it's coming out.
Okay. When is it coming out?
Well, we don't know, but supposedly the Hangover's Todd Phillips is going to write a script with the guy that wrote 8 Mile, Scott Silver.
Okay.
And Phillips is rumored to direct the movie. Martin Scorsese will be producing it. A Joker
is weird.
origin story movie.
That Martin Scorsese will be producing.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It's really weird. I mean, and as you said before, it's a bad idea. Why?
We don't need to see this.
No, we don't.
This goes back to Patton Oswalt's bit about I don't need to see where the things I love
I just
come
like
from.
the things I like.
Yes.
Right. This will be the DC Comics version of the Star Wars prequels.
Yes.
Essentially. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. This goes hand in hand with the news that there is, we know there's going to be a Margot Robbie Harley Quinn spinoff movie.
Right.
But there's also rumors of a Harley and Joker team-up movie, which may or may not be this same project. Basically, they have no idea what they're doing. They just don't know what they're doing.
No, they don't.
And it's because, I think we talked about this before, but I think it's because, Warner Brothers is so big that you've got different producing teams, you've got different studios under the banner. So, yeah, you could have one. The right hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing.
Right.
And there's a joy buzzer that'll kill you in one of them. And so I think two different teams could be working on the same project, or projects that would conflict with each other, that would hurt each other. Whereas in Marvel, you can complain that it's monolithic and it's Disney, but we know who's working on what.
Right.
And then we get Brie Larson to be in this film, and then we get the two people to direct it, and just go off and do your thing. And we'll check back in, and if it looks like you're not getting it done, then we'll just fire somebody and put somebody else in there.
That's right.
And so it's hard to know how to even feel about this. I mean, clearly the origin movie is a bad idea.
I think it's a really bad idea. We don't need to see that.
No.
The Joker is the Joker. Let's see him be the Joker.
Yeah.
And we don't need to see where he came from.
No. And in his most famous and most lauded incarnation, he, part of his shtick is teasing the fact that, he has an origin story. His origin becomes meaningless because he just obfuscates it to the point where it adds to, the enigma that is his identity. But
Right.
They just kind of make fun of the fact that you want an origin story. And then somebody watched The Dark Knight, and what they got out of that was, we got to do an origin story movie for the Joker. Where does it? Whom fashioned that pool cue? We got to know about that. How did he get those scars? Oh my God, you guys, come on! Horrible. Is there any good news in the world of movies? I don't know. That Obi-Wan Kenobi movie is a real thing now. That's going to go forward.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Well, that's
Ewan McGregor's he's been resting a little too easy. We got to get him back in the game.
That's another movie where it's like, I'm not sure that we really need
That is a definite I kill George Lucas at midnight with a shovel thing. I definitely, because what do you even do?
I don't know. You tell stories about him fighting sand people.
Yeah, thrilling.
Yeah.
Thrilling.
Absolutely thrilling.
75% of the dialogue. How did he learn to make that crate dragon noise? Dumb. Kind of off the beaten path, but I wanted to mention that it looks like Glenn Close is close to starring in a Sunset Boulevard movie musical.
Oh. Well, that sounds wonderful.
Horrible.
Oh.
Why remake the best movie ever made?
I don't know.
Why do that?
I don't know.
Michael Schoenhauer, what isn't it? Who did the musical? The same guy's Les Mis, right? He's a French
I don't know.
guy. Come on,
I don't know.
look it
off
up.
the top of my
Pretend
head.
like you care. Look it up. No, anyway, the musical is not all that great, and yeah, like I said, I just think that is one of the best movies of all time. You Can Fight Me, and the musical is not great. And so, therefore, we should make a movie version of the musical. No, it's Andrew Lloyd Webber. What am I talking about?
Okay.
Glenn Close. You don't have to do this. Now,
No,
if
she doesn't.
if somebody held a gun to the world's head and said, either there'll be a Sunset Boulevard movie musical or the world's brains will be all over this contract, I would run right out and cast Glenn Close. She's perfect.
Right.
But why? Don't. Why? Don't.
I don't know.
Why? It's gonna.
Can Glenn Close sing?
Everybody can sing, right? Except for Russell Crowe, which is ironic because he literally has a band. No, I mean, like everybody, you get him with a voice coach for a little while. You know, that's why you got into the biz,
Okay.
right?
All right.
Yeah, entertainer.
Sure.
So I don't like that news, but I don't know what to do about it. Here's some other news that I don't like. So this Hellboy movie is going forward. Nobody can stop that one, by the way.
Right.
And they have cast a girl named Sasha Lane in this thing. She's playing a character named Alice Monaghan, who is a baby that was kidnapped by fairies. And so
What?
she's like like a changeling, that type of thing.
Okay.
But this is like what happens to the girl. She goes, and it's actually, they got rid of Del Toro, but it's a very Del Toro-esque kind of story because she then is taken to fairy and becomes like queen of the fairies or something like that.
Okay.
And it's like, all right, well, there you go. That doesn't actually sound very Hellboy-ish to me, but
Right.
I don't know. It's going to be the fairy queen or whatever. So in the title. So, they've also added Ed, and I can never say his name right, but it looks like Screen.
Okay.
He played, the guy in, Deadpool, Francis.
Oh,
Or
yes.
Ajax.
Yes.
Yeah. And he has been cast as, Ben, Damio, who is a character from the comics, from the BPRD comics,
Okay.
who is a Japanese man.
Oh, so
Yep.
we're whitewashing.
Yep. Yeah.
That's not great.
No. And he is a were-jaguar. He is a weirdo who doesn't turn green, but it's close enough. This would be traditionally where you would put the Asian character
Yeah.
that I've been yelling about before.
Yeah.
And you get this guy who he's did he have a rapping name or was he just he'd go by his name? He's a rapper, right? Who's turned into an actor?
I guess so.
And is not an actor. Like he works in Deadpool because you've got the most charismatic man in the world who wears a mask over his face.
Yeah.
He must have been talking to Carl Urban. It was like, that was ballsy. The way you wore your helmet all the way through Dread. I can top you. You just cast, so you get this guy who all he can do is just kind of smirk, and then he's so thin that like when he moves his jaw, you can see like the striated muscles in his jaw wiggling around. It's like,
Yeah.
when is he going to kill this guy?
Yeah.
And he does. He kills him horribly at the end of the film. That's why that works. But as far as like playing a hero who is a war veteran and a Japanese American guy who gets bit by a were-jaguar, it's complicated. It doesn't matter. Why?
I don't know.
And the thing is that I don't think that fan outcry can help because like once the ink's dry, we got a deal here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'd have to pay him out to get somebody else. So we're stuck. Like we've got him.
Great.
It's not a situation where I think that ScarJo could have decided to walk away from the Ghost in the Shell thing as the star, and then they could have like got somebody else or whatever. Fine, but as being an ancillary character, and the ink is dry on the contract, we can't stop this unless the film falls apart. He will be that character.
Yeah.
And all the studio can do is just go, well, we feel like we've got a diverse cast of blah, blah, jerk off. There's just, when is this going to stop?
I don't know.
I hate this.
I hate it too. It's not
Yeah, but
fun.
David Harbour's not really from hell. He doesn't even like pancakes.
Yeah.
There is no
okay.
argument against it. It's just dumb.
That is dumb.
Say something that makes me feel good.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious.
I don't even want to talk about the Mary Poppins reboot.
Okay.
Let's not even. No, you've made me feel worse.
I'm
Thanks.
sorry.
Well, speaking of feeling terrible, and this will be our last story, I think, before we move on, talk about Game of Thrones. James Cameron has got a little something to say about Wonder Woman
Uh-oh.
and the fact that you like it.
Yeah, what does he have to say?
He says that it's a step backwards for women in film.
I think he's wrong.
I'm not going to look. Well, you got it. That's where we're going. I'm not going to look up the exact quote, but he's basically saying he's playing the It's, she's running around in her underwear or whatever. We're objectifying her. It's the same thing that we've had day in, day out. And it isn't as good as my character, Sarah Connor, who's tough and she doesn't always look pretty and she's a bad mom, and she's conflicted. And that's what we need going forward with characters.
She might not be as well-rounded as Sarah Connor, but she's still a strong female character. And
Ooh, you almost made it out of your explanation without using that phrase, but I understand why you did.
yeah, well, everybody loves Wonder Woman. We look up to Wonder Woman. Yeah, she runs around in her underwear. Guess what? She's been running around in her underwear for years.
Which, you are of the same mind as Patty Jenkins, the director, of course, of the film, who is, as far as I understand, all but signed on to do the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what she said. She just basically said, who are you? Who are you to say that this is good or not?
Yeah.
This is a good movie, if I do say so myself. This is a strong character. People like it. They look up to it. And as far as how she dresses, have you read the comic book?
Yes.
That's what she looks like. So who are you to tell her what to wear?
Right.
Yeah.
She's a strong woman.
Stop with the strong woman. I'm so sick of that phrase.
All right.
I don't know if I could even pull something out of it. It's so self-serving. The fact that he points back to himself, he could have picked 100 years worth of characters to point to. So it's clear what his motivation is. And coming from the guy who, I don't know, let's see, Jamie Lee Curtis striptease in True Lies, all the boobs in Piranha 2. Listen to this guy, everybody. I think he knows what he's talking about. I think he knows how to respect women. Half-naked Navi running around. Come on, man. He's gone, right? He's lost it.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, he's obsessed with Avatar these days.
Got, nitrogen psychosis from all the trips he's taken down to the Marianas Trench or whatever.
Right. And I mean, yeah.
Bad news.
Yeah.
I still want a True Lies 2, though. Can't wait. It's like we're going to get picked up on YouTube for the content recognition. That's sounds just like it.
It does.
Yes. The final episode of the 7th season of Game of Thrones has aired, and oh boy, it was too long.
Yes, it was.
It did not need to be 90 minutes.
No, it didn't.
It's one of those things where I really liked individual parts of the episode.
Yes.
And I disliked, I think it failed as a whole.
Yes, I think
it did
so
not
too.
need to be that long. The first half hour, they're literally just sitting down in chairs in King's Landing. And in doing that, we got these character moments that shows often, especially shows that have to rush like this, don't get to deliver. It was clear that they wanted, that Tyrion talking to Cersei. That was their, that's the Emmy clip.
Yeah.
That was, let's give these two actors a chance to really bounce off each other. Loved it. Great. But didn't need it. And then we found out at the end of the episode that none of it meant anything because she was just lying the entire time.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well,
which
great.
is just great.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess it was something that she would do, but I just kind of like to, I don't know. And then we got a reiteration. Let's jump to the end of the episode. We're all spoiling now. This is all spoilers. So like I said, I will tell you in the show description when you can come back to not get spoilers about this episode and the entire season and the show so far. That was a push through that cough, and it caught me at the end.
Oh boy.
But of course we go to the end of the episode and they just hit one more time the whole thing with Jon's parentage. We find out what his name actually is now.
Yeah.
Aegon Targaryen, which has a lot of, there's a lot of implication there.
Yes.
Plus, there's 8 names in the world of Game of Thrones. You guys need a baby name book to fall through a time warp. But anyway, And they just repeat all that, and it's like that was the end of the last season.
Yeah,
We got all that all over again.
Yeah.
You didn't need to do that all over again, did you? I didn't forget.
Maybe they felt like they needed to spell it out for the dumb people in the audience. Daenerys is his aunt.
No, yeah.
We all know.
But that's, okay, all right. I don't think that they had to. It's true that you have to do that often with audiences. I don't think that they should have, and I don't think they really needed to, but they certainly did. What did you think about the episode? Any part of it, doesn't matter.
Well, going back to that part, they certainly didn't want us to take any joy out of Jon and Daenerys
these
getting
sexy
together.
Kids are getting it on.
Because the entire time it was like they were screaming, she's your aunt.
Yeah, Bran is like, and so that's why he's related to her. And if he ever had sex with her, it'd be really gross.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on screen, ooh, so hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Let's talk about
Somebody needs to tell him. Yeah, maybe somebody should have told him sooner.
Yeah, Bran, you've known about it for a while.
Send him a raven.
Yeah, anything.
Anything.
I want to talk about my Game of Thrones problem, which is I appreciate that it is a different kind of fantasy world. I think something that gets in the way of a lot of people enjoying fantasy shows, be they Legend of the Seeker or Merlin or whatever, is that people just don't jibe with the forsooth my lord doth forthwith and that sort of thing.
Sure.
And one of the reasons that I think Game of Thrones has resonated with people is because this is one of the most expensive shows on TV. It's one of the most lauded and award-winning shows on TV. It's a show that everybody who can watch it, who can afford to watch it, is watching. And many people who can't, but have a computer, are watching as well. Mm-hmm. And the finale of the penultimate season starts with two guys using the C word, that is a name of a male chicken, about 14 times in a casual conversation about where we've come so far in the story. There is a modern sort of vernacular to the way they talk.
Yes.
And sometimes that bugs me, but I admit that it's probably good for a general public to pick it up. Also, something I was thinking about tonight as they're boiling pitch to get ready for if the Unsullied attack.
Yeah.
This is a world that has been... So our Middle Ages, was in the middle of the last millennium.
Yeah.
And we developed technology and all this stuff, and we kind of got industry and computers and rockets, ships, and all this stuff. But this is a world that, for whatever reason, maybe the cycles of winter, or maybe there's just not enough heavy metals around, but they never really made it out of that. So this world has been in a medieval sort of level of technology for thousands of years.
Right.
And they've done this a little, but they should have the best medieval technology ever. Like if Crusader knights from England went through a time warp and came into Westeros, and they fought like the Golden Company or something like that, they should get wiped out. Like Westeros should have the sharpest swords, like the most advanced armor, because they've been able to use these techniques for thousands of years.
Right.
And so maybe the fact that they don't do the thee and thou and the forthwith and all that stuff is because their society has risen to a level of sophistication, even if their technology has not.
Okay, sure.
But really what it is it's just Benioff and Weiss just going, and it'd be funny if he just, used the C word here. That's really what it is. The way that the show has this epic feel, but then it trips over itself to try and comment on imager theories about the show. I thought you'd still be Rowan. Haha, I guess?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that much transparency. I don't want to feel like this show is plugged in. I want to feel like I'm watching some legend that's come to life from another universe.
Right.
And not just like, I hit that joke. You get it? Do you ever feel like that when you're watching the show?
Sometimes.
Yeah. I'm very aware. And plus, like, when some of the twists that they do, you're very aware of, like, this is set up like... like the Red Wedding, for instance.
Yeah.
I thought that was strong.
It was strong.
Everybody talks about that, and it was 3 seasons ago. Because when you think about it, all the pieces were there.
Yeah.
You should have figured it out.
Right.
And then when it does happen, it's so brutal and takes so long, and it's so horrifying that, that's a good twist. But there's other twists where you can pretty much see it all coming, then it happens, and you're like, all right, I guess that was more brutal than I expected.
Right.
I don't know, what am I talking about? This thing. So for the idiots, I feel like the show is really dumbed down for the idiots these days. Whether or not Cersei is actually pregnant, every time she touches her belly, every time
Yes.
she's like starts to get misty, and the camera focuses on her hand, and it's like, we understand. We know what is
Yes.
set up here. You don't have to keep doing that.
No.
We should be, in fact, if anything, the dumb people have stopped watching it by now, right?
Oh, you would think.
Service us. We've stuck around. We're the smart viewers. That's my problem with the show.
I understand that. Sometimes it gets a little too long too. Like, we didn't need to see them sitting around waiting for forever.
Yeah.
And then
My-
Tyrion goes and talks to Cersei, and then they come back out.
We can watch him walk back out.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
His little legs, so it takes longer. I got a problem with the Theon thing. Like, do I care? Do we need, like, to wrap up the Theon story? Is he going to have...
I don't know.
Because I know that we have to have more than just ice zombies for the last season, but we've got 6 episodes left. Is there really going to be a big payoff
Wow.
to an awesome Theon solo mission? They were willing to let Littlefinger's story just come to an end.
Yeah, they
Bam,
were.
done. There you go. I mean, he's been irrelevant for a couple like seasons now, but you think that the guy who's got a plan for everything would have a plan to get out of
For everything.
being at a knife point, right?
Yes.
And they should, I mean, like, Ned had the right idea. He should have just choked him out a long time ago. And that also proves to me that Lady Stoneheart's never going to be a part of this, because that would have been the
Probably not.
perfect time to bring that out. You know, like, what's his ace in the hole? And so if, you know, the daughters of Catelyn Stark or whatever are about to kill him, he's like, do you guys love your mom? Because I've got her in a cell somewhere, and you're never going to find out where she is if you kill me.
Right.
That's never going to happen now.
No.
So, I don't know. Whatever. And the one thing I can take out of this is that no book guys, the book people aren't gloating because they don't know what's going to happen either, because we're all off the
No.
books now.
Exactly. I don't know that we needed to have more of a Theon story line or not. I mean, I'm kind of sick of Theon personally because he's such a coward. I was so pissed at him when he jumped into the
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
to
people have
save
talked
his own skin.
Well, but it's also he attacks and then what? Yara dies and he dies and everybody dies and they're all dead.
Yeah.
I mean, at least he's preserving something. It was
I guess.
discretion and not valor. I don't know. Whatever.
I guess.
Yeah. And then, of course, we've got Blue Fire Dragon Man. I choose you.
Yes. Holy cow.
Yeah.
The wall is just gone.
I feel like that was something of an afterthought, too, because here's this thing. It's literally in the first episode of the show. We hear about it all the time. It's the only defense. Remember the big battle against the wildlings in, like, was it like season 3 or season 4, you know, where they're dropping the anchor that, you know, sweeps all the people off and they're fighting guys and stuff. And this is just, yeah, it's cool to have a dragon just blow it up, but we could have got like a 90-minute episode. You couldn't have like Tormund and Beric like mount a defense of the wall, and they think that the dead are going to crawl up at first, and that seems like, oh, okay, we're doing okay here. And then like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
It just kind of blows through it in like 2 minutes, and that's it.
It was anticlimactic.
Yes.
And it was disheartening because
I want to know, what was their plan if they didn't get that dragon? We have a friend who says like that was their plan the whole time, but I'm like, but how did the Night King know that they were
gonna
we got to get it,
lure-
we got to steal a dead guy.
yeah.
I mean, yes, it's heavily implied, if not just downright said, that the Night King has the green sight or whatever, you know, just like Three-Eyed Raven does or whatever, so he can see things too.
Okay.
But if that's true, I know they want to keep these guys like remote and mysterious, but I'd like to see maybe a little more of their machinations.
Yeah.
Because they've just been sitting there in the north, and if he can really see everything, then they could have tried to manipulate other events, you know, and to make things happen sooner. But instead, they've just been walking extremely slowly. I'm glad they finally paid off them hitting the wall, though, because if they're far enough away from the wall that Gendry can like sprint there in a couple hours, then some slow dead people should get there real quick.
Yes.
So yeah, that worked out. So anyway, I was like I said, I was
kind of sad that the wall is gone.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
The wall and Littlefinger gone too soon. R.I.P.
Yeah.
See you at the crossroads.
See you at the crossroads.
on King's Landing or King's Road. Yeah, but I, kind of disappointed. Didn't hate it. Just kind of was hoping for a little more. And it certainly, I think it promises good things for the next season in that they didn't feel the need to go out on something huge.
Right.
Like because they could have had something like Winterfell burns down or something like that. I was expecting something huge, but they're saving all their good juice, I think, for the last 6 episodes.
I can't believe there's only 6 episodes.
As far as I understand. Now, some of them are going to be almost 2 hours long. So really, why don't you just do 12 episodes? If you're going to have 6 2-hour-long episodes.
Why do they pen these deals and they're so weird?
Yeah, well, that's it. It's absolutely about... They're probably asking a lot of the crew to take pay cuts because HBO's like, well, we don't want to pay... The way it's, as far as I understand, the way it's contracted, you're paid X amount for every episode or whatever. So they can kind of save money by basically overworking like the crew by saying it's, 1 episode instead of whatever.
Well, that's kind of jerky thing to do.
It is jerky. And that's one of the reasons that they had this last strike is that they want to stop companies from finding ways to make extra profit off of like online things by saying, well, you're contracted for these episodes, but if we have you do like a web short or something like that, then you don't get paid for writing it or being in it or whatever. New media, man.
Wow.
Can you imagine? First of all,
New ways to be shady.
Well, yeah. Or the real shady. I was watching the opening sequence, which is still great. It's one of the best opening sequences on TV. And I was thinking, what if somebody was watching Leave It to Beaver in 1958 or whatever? And we did it. Hat trick of time portal. You reach through a time portal and you drag that guy into 2017 and set him in front of Game of Thrones. Like, would he piss and shit himself? Like when he just saw the opening sequence?
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, like, TV has completely changed now. And speaking of Leave It to Beaver, you couldn't just go on your old-timey steam-powered computer and watch next week's episode of Leave It to Beaver before it came out because some idiot in Spain hit the go button. Do you know what I mean? Like, it is a totally different landscape right now.
Right.
Just imagine what TV is going to be like in another 10 years. You can't.
I can't.
No, I think we are hitting the TV singularity.
Oh, boy.
You don't seem very excited about that.
I don't know how to feel about it.
Well, that's the point. It's a singularity. Not even the three-eyed raven can see beyond it.
Wow, foo, fall.
Maybe Jasper does the Astro. Maybe Jasper does the Astro. Maybe Jasper does
Oh, Comic Book Club. You have a lot of slack to pick up, my friend.
Yep.
Now that we're not talking about bad movies anymore. Talk about more comics.
That's right.
That's good. Especially if we're going to read things like Astro City.
Yeah.
By Kurt Busiek. And the covers, so beautiful, by...
Alex Ross?
That's the one. And then nearly all of the internal art by Brent Anderson.
Okay.
I think there's been a fill-in or two here and there, but he and Busiek are pretty much partners on this thing.
Okay.
And I think it's good. Sometimes Astro City tells so many different kinds of stories in the superhero universe that sometimes I think I'd want to see maybe like a different artist every book, see like, just fit an artist and their style to the kind of story you're telling.
Right.
But, Anderson does a great job, Anderson does a good job, I think, adapting his style to those kind of stories that he's telling.
Right.
In this comic. Now we're talking about the very first volume, the first 6 issues of Astro City, which came out in 1995 to about 1996.
Yep.
And that was with Image Comics originally.
Yes.
Now the book is still going today, actually, but it's got a very sort of disjointed kind of path because it went from Image Comics to Homage Comics, which that's Jim Lee's studio, right? Or is that Wildstorm?
I have no idea.
Anyway, it's one of those banners that kind of broke out of Image Comics. Then it did go to Wildstorm.
Okay.
After that in 2004, and now it's landed at Vertigo.
Okay.
So now it's a DC property, technically.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite the journey.
That is quite the journey. Yeah. It went from, and then you've got a guy, Busiek, who was, worked for Marvel for a long time, did a lot of things over there, worked on the Avengers and stuff like that. So he goes from working for one of the big two to working for those scrappy little pups over at Image Comics, which is
Right.
that's taking a leap. Now, Marvel never would have let him make Astro City, so I'm glad he did it.
Right.
But then now he's out there, working for an independent basically for the next 15 years, and now he's right back with the other big two.
Right.
So yeah, it's really weird. And the story of him creating it, or at least working on it, is an interesting one as well. I was introduced to the comic, so I knew about the comic when it came out, and are we doing this right? What's Astro City about?
It's hard to summarize.
Do your best.
It's Astro City is a city where superheroes exist and supervillains exist.
Wow.
And
Tell me more.
They get together as what is their super group called again?
The Honor Guard,
The Honor Guard. Thank you.
I think.
And that's like all the good guys are part of the Honor Guard. Well, most of them. Some people don't sign up for the Honor Guard, but
These are a lot of trees you're describing. I want to hear
Yeah.
about the forest.
okay. Well, basically, it's a place where superheroes exist and then regular people exist and stuff happens.
Okay, you're fired. You're fired.
Hey.
It is a comic book about comic books.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is. It's Tom Strong without the insufferable moralizing and the really weird tone shifts of Alan Moore when he's kind of doing a thing.
Right.
Like Game of Thrones. It's like, what are you guys doing? Just tell an old timey tale. Why are we suddenly, talking about cell phones? Not really, but it just feels like that sometimes. It is Kurt Busiek taking what he knows about the world of superheroes and writing a comic that is a commentary on the world of superheroes, but that turns into a comic. You can
Right.
read it straight, or you can read it for its deconstruction of superhero tropes.
That's true.
For instance, the very first issue centers around the hero Samaritan,
Yes.
who is, clearly a Clark Kent sort of analog.
Yes.
He's a very Superman-ish type character. Funnily enough, I believe this was around the time that Superman in DC Comics started developing electricity, energy powers.
Huh.
So technically, he's a lot like Superman it was at the time.
That's
and
weird.
that Superman ended up splitting into Superman Blue and Red, and Samaritan's costume is blue and red.
That's true.
See? This rewards that deeper kind of reading.
Sure.
But you can enjoy it like you do as well. It's a place where some people are super and some people aren't.
Yes.
So anyway, Samaritan he's kind of a reporter, but he's not really a reporter. He's like a fact checker.
Yeah.
So he checks, edits things, but he doesn't actually do that at all, because it turns out that he's got an alien computer that does that
it
for
for
him.
him.
And his life, it is in the same way that Supreme or Miracle Man is stories by Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman that basically take the Superman thing to its logical extent or degree, which is, I am essentially a god. I am almost all powerful. Why would I just get cats out of trees? That's crazy.
Right.
But the way that Samaritan's expresses that is that his life is all about the efficiency. He's trying to save as many people as he can.
Yes.
And it has left him with no life, no alter ego at all. He can't interact with his coworkers. He can't have a girlfriend. He can't do anything because he goes to his office, locks the door, and then he feeds the thing that needs to be edited to a computer that does it for him. And then he
Right.
goes and he spends all day zooming from place to place, saving people. And even when he's saving somebody, it's like, this is taking a long time. People will die while I'm saving this one
person.
guy because this is
Yeah.
taking so much time. And there's this device in the story where he times his flights everywhere. It took me 10 seconds to fly to Egypt or whatever, and so by the end of the day, he's like, well, 57 seconds total. Okay. That's how long he got to fly. And then
Yeah.
at night he goes to sleep and he dreams about flying
Yes.
and taking his time and enjoying the beauty, and the feeling, the sensation of flight, which he
Right.
can't enjoy during the day because the longer he spends in the air, he considers that wasted time and wasted
Right.
lives. And it's like he's somebody who is literally being driven crazy by the need to help people and the powers he's been given.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's the first issue.
Yes.
That's an incredible metaphor.
It is.
And it's the best Superman story that the guy's not called Superman.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts with an S.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, that's unbelievable. And I'm so embarrassed that it took me so long to read it because I didn't want to, it's tough. I took a chance on a lot of the Image comics when they first came out because a lot of these guys were doing cool stuff at Marvel and DC. They went over to Image and I thought, I'll give them a chance. And we got Wildcats and Cyberforce. So I made a mistake. But I didn't want to read this because I was like, I don't want to pick up a new universe. I don't think I really like the art because there aren't enough pouches and cross-hatching. You know what I mean? And but a friend of mine who was a bigger comics guy than I had a bunch of these. He had a bunch of stuff. And I was in a play with him. And it was a play where neither of us had to be on stage for a lot of it. So there was a
Okay.
lot of sitting backstage. And you probably know, like if you're in the green room or whatever, you'd kill time however you can.
Yes.
And so he bought stacks of comics, with him. And the whole cast got into it. And so whenever you'd walk off stage, you walk back into the green room, everybody's got their face, in a 22-page 4-color fantasy. And I just started, okay, well, I'm trapped back here backstage. I guess I'll read this Astro City thing. And that's how I started reading it.
Wow.
And it had been out, this is probably sometime into the second volume, I think. Because I read like 20 or so of them, like just in a row over the course of the show.
Sure.
And I got into it. I said, I'm going to start buying this. And I went to the store. No Astro City.
What?
It had started to be delayed, and it would like miss months and stuff like that. It turns out that Busick had mercury poisoning.
Oh my goodness.
So his health, he couldn't like work on the book. And I only knew that because another friend of mine who is a comic artist and was actually going to a comic college heard the scuttlebutt about that. This is like,
Sure.
early internet days. So you couldn't just look on CBR or something and find out this information. And so, yeah. And then I still don't, I wanted to ask him about that when we talked to him, but it just seemed weird. Like, hey, tell me about the time you were poisoned. But I think it turned out that it was like bad fillings or something like that. So they were like leaching into,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, so eventually they got that worked out and he was healthy again, started doing the book for a while. And then he had gallbladder problems.
Oh my goodness.
And so he'd be throwing up blood. This is like probably 10 years later. And so he couldn't work on it then. So this book has like,
Wow.
if you believe in like metaphysical things, like, villains want to keep this book from getting into your hands. And that man has just soldiered on. And he's made it all the way to Vertigo, to the big DC. So
Well, there
I
you
think it's
go.
going to be around for a while, I think. What are some of the other stories that happened in this volume? Because it is an anthology. We don't just stick with Samaritan. We sort of move on from there.
Yeah, that's true. We follow this one guy who, there's another story that's takes place in a newspaper, and guy is retelling one of his first big stories
Yeah.
to this new guy he's hired.
Yeah. And the character's like, it'd be like, what if, we followed Perry White for one issue of Superman?
Right.
And he tells this story about this amazing team up that he saw where the heroes defeated like these villains and stuff like that. And he came back to write the story and it was so fantastic and he couldn't corroborate it that they're like, well, we can't print this.
Right.
And
you have
so-
to print just the facts.
Right. And so they kept making him like re-edit it. And then the tease or the twist, at the end of the issue, we get to read the story.
Yeah.
And it goes from this evil cult uses like the body of a shark to summon a Cthulhu-like shark god. And then
Yes.
their version of the Avengers show up to fight the Sharkmen, and this mysterious guy called the Soldier or whatever shows up, and he's supposedly been dead for a while, and it's like this huge interdimensional battle, and then the article is just dead shark stops subway for 3 hours or something like that, because that's all that he could prove.
Right.
And that was not a comics thing so much, but that was kind of digging into, there's so many comics characters whose alter egos are newspaper people or TV news or something like
Right.
that, and like but do they ever depict that profession with integrity?
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it's it's not even a story about superheroes, but it's set in a superhero world. It's a story about journalism, really.
Yes.
Which is incredible. That's the second issue.
I know.
I won't do that anymore.
The third issue, we follow this guy who is kind of a criminal.
Yeah.
And he's spooked because Jack in the Box, who is also a criminal, like villain.
No.
He's not a villain?
No, he's a hero.
He's a hero.
Yeah.
That's confusing to me.
He's a street level hero.
Okay. He's a street level hero.
Well, here's the twist though. I would compare him to kind of like to Daredevil a little bit.
Okay.
Because his persona is sort of clownish, and like before Frank Miller came around, like Daredevil was a fun guy. Maybe he's more Spider-Man-y.
Okay.
But so yeah, it's from the point of view of this criminal who accidentally sees
his real
Jack in the
face.
Box, yeah, transform, or not transform, but take his mask off, and then he's worried that he gets more and more paranoid that like
He's
Jack in the
after
Box
him.
is going to come after him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the guy, he's kind of smart, and so he follows up the lead and does confirm like who this guy is.
Who's his identity?
And he ultimately ends up leaving town. He takes a
he's
bus
so
to Alaska
spooked.
because yeah, exactly. And so that's like Jack in the Box, like I said, Daredevil, but it's like a Batman character. Do you know what I mean? It's what's so brilliant about it, Kurt, stay away from the mercury in that fish, but you're my boy. He combined the Batman and the Joker.
Yeah.
Because he is this urban vigilante who's terrifying.
That's kind of why I
but
thought
he's
he was a villain.
He's a clown, yeah. And it shows the cowardly and superstitious side of criminals.
Yeah.
Because Jack in the Box never has to lay a hand on this guy. This guy becomes so terrified that he basically just flees town.
Yeah.
Because he's so scared of this clown.
I know.
Like it's awesome.
It is awesome.
No, I wasn't gonna do that anymore. I want to talk about the fourth issue. It's my favorite one.
Yeah.
It's the best one.
That's a pretty good one.
There's a place.
Shadow Hill.
No, is it? It's not Shadow Hill. What's it called?
I thought it was.
Well, you look it up while I talk about it. But this, or maybe it is Shadow Hill. Yeah, that's a dumb name. I'm going to take a point off for that. But it's about this woman. It follows this normal woman who's not a superhero, and she lives on Shadow Hill, which probably has a real name. Oh, I should mention, almost all of the names and places in Astro City are named for comic book creators.
Okay.
But like not that, there's not like Romita Plaza or anything like that. Like we're going way back. Like there's Binderbeck Plaza is like a combination of Otto Binder, who did all the Fawcett comics like Captain Marvel, and C.C. Beck, who also did Captain Marvel and like Wiz comics and stuff like that. So it's
Okay.
like really old like references. I think one thing's called a Kirby or something or other. But she lives on this hill, and like this hill, this is a superhero town. Things are weird, right?
Yes.
So for whatever reason, this hill is like possessed, like it's an evil place.
Yes.
But it's like the woman is like a Romany type character,
Right.
who I feel is depicted sensitively.
Yes.
Her heritage is part of what we're talking about. That's part of the story. But it's like if all the sort of evil eye, ward off the spirits, and if all that stuff was really real and it all was in one part of town. So
Right.
instead of like, this is a bad part of town because there's bad elements and crime, this is a bad part of town because there are tentacle creatures that live in the shadows
Right.
that will eat you if you go out at night.
Right.
So there's this like your normal morning routine of like make some toast, brush my teeth, comb my hair. For her becomes, put on my crucifix, make sure the garlic's out, polish the ruined plaque that keeps the spirits, away from the front door.
Right.
And by extension, you can imagine that everybody in this section of town they just live with this. They just do
Yes.
this.
She nods at the hanged man.
There's this
every
hero,
morning.
yeah, who is like their Doctor Strange or probably their Spectre or maybe Dr. Fate type character called the Hanged Man after the tarot card.
Yeah.
Who's like this silent protector that we never see him fight anybody, but clearly he's doing something to keep it safe.
Yeah.
And so she goes into the city, one of the few people that they say that really does leave the city, and she works at this place that's kind of like, she works for, is she a journalist too? I can't remember what she does. No, she's a lawyer. It's a law firm. She's a law clerk or something like that.
Yeah.
And one of the top lawyers is this girl who's like a sort of Lois Laney type character, and she's dating this guy who's part of this team called the First Family,
Yeah.
who is, most of their references are like obscure. This is a pretty heavy-handed sort of Fantastic Four thing,
I
but
was
that's
gonna
fine.
say.
Yeah. So she's dating like the Johnny Torch type character.
Right.
And this whole time, this woman, like, she sort of admires but kind of resents that the people in the regular part of Astro City, don't seem to have the same weight. Her mom's been on her because she's like, why don't you care about your family? You want to go leave town every day and go work in some office. And she's like, no, I want to make something out of myself. And their building is like attacked by these bad guys who have broken out of prison. And they're all like in danger, and she's really scared, and she gets cornered by one of the bad guys and is rescued by this guy from the First Family.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be this thing where it's the usual story is, thank you, Johnny Storm or whatever. Like, thank you for saving me.
Right.
And she probably goes off and lives her life, and she's happy that she was saved from Slamburger by this guy. But instead, like, he saves her, and there's this great line about how she sees, as he's there in the flesh, and as she's saving her, she sees that he has like crow's feet around his eyes, and he's got like an old scar on his chin.
Yeah.
And he's
like
just
a real
he's just a person. He's just a regular person.
Yeah.
And so after this happens, she goes home, and she, they say she doesn't have to come into work, and she's like, I don't think I'm going to. And she just kind of goes out around Shadow Hill for the day, goes down to this, butcher shop where her mom was saying that, they had a job opening, and, the guy that runs it is single, and maybe you should check it out. And we get the idea that she's just going to stay here.
Yeah.
And that should be, it is, it is depressing.
It is.
But it's awesome. It's such a, not everything has to end like well, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, she's telling her, and we don't really know, what her is in the future of her life, but she's telling herself that she is, reaffirming her traditions, and she's trying, she's not getting uppity, she's not trying to change her station.
Right.
But she's afraid.
She's afraid.
She's been afraid of, she's always told herself she wasn't afraid of the shadows in the dark and the tentacle monsters and stuff like that. It's part of life. But she's been afraid of this stuff the whole time. And then she's confronted with this thing, and she retreats. And she's just going to stay in Shadow Hill.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing story.
It is.
Oh.
Although depressing.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure, of course. Totally depressing.
But still amazing.
Yeah, but amazing.
Yeah.
What else? Is the next one
The
the
next
one with
is-
Winged Victory?
No, that's the sixth one.
Oh, what's the fifth one?
The fifth one is the one where there's this one guy who turns out to be like an alien from
Oh, yeah.
another world.
I didn't like that
bug,
one.
Bug alien guy.
Yeah, that one's all right.
Yeah.
I liked it. I liked it all right. To me, it was a little too Outer Limits. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I think I could, give me a few seconds and I could look up which Outer Limits episode that is.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like this bug alien guy, but he's disguised as a homeless guy, or at least like an old man, and he is collecting information on the heroes. And it serves a good device in this comic book, which throughout its life doesn't ever really tell a linear story.
Right.
There is I think it's in the homage, maybe the Wildstorm issues. There's a 16-issue long arc called The Dark Age that is more of a straightforward story.
Okay.
But in this thing, we'll see Samaritan will do something, and then maybe in the next issue or two, you'll see like one shot of like a newspaper headline that says like Samaritan saves bus or something like that.
Right.
So we know these are all connected. But this is a great chance to do a little info dump because he's collecting information about these heroes. And then we can just read what his information is, like their
Right.
trading cards or whatever. So we go, oh, okay, that's, Quiver or whatever.
Right.
So it's good for that. But otherwise, I mean, it's just kind of like a kind of one note, kind of fun story.
Yeah.
I did like the character of Crackerjack, though,
Yes.
because it shows this side. There's this trope of the superhero character that isn't the Superman. He's not the Wonder Woman. It's the Wolverine, or it's the, we know Peter Parker's a good guy, but it's the Spider-Man guy. It's the
Yeah.
guy that's disconnected from the other heroes and kind of comes in and cracks wise.
Right.
And people are like, what's this guy's deal? And we get to see that that's Crackerjack, and he's not a great guy.
No, he's not really.
He's not a really good guy. Like, he sometimes just barely gets out of the situations that he's in. And then, of course,
And
he's
he
like,
calls it a success.
he's like, oh, that was great. Like, I took care of everything there.
Yeah.
And so we get this scene where the guy's apartment burns down. Like, so he's collecting all this information. And once he's got all the information, he's supposed to send a signal to his home planet so they can come invade.
Yeah.
And this actually does come back. It becomes a plot line later on.
Okay.
And his apartment burns down for some reason.
Yeah.
And it's heavily implied, or if not just straight out said, that this other kid that's been living in the apartment is Cracker Jack.
Right. Eugene.
But he must take his wig off and put a mustache on or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. And so, but the alien guy has become kind of obsessed with Earth heroes. He's kind of got a similar thing that regular people do, and that he's sort of fascinated with them.
Yeah.
And so he decides, like, I should have sent the signal a long time ago. Tonight, I'm going to watch Cracker Jack. He plants a bug on him or whatever when he gets saved by him. And he says, I'm going to watch him. And it's basically like, whatever he does this will be the judge for humanity.
It's going to indicate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, Cracker Jack is just a terrible person and is, not very heroic, or at least not as heroic as he pretends to be. And then he shows up and he's like, hey, Toots, let me help you out. And she's like, aren't you dating so-and-so? He's like, nah, she's mad at me. She says I flirt with women too much.
It's like,
so what's up with
really?
you? Yeah.
You think?
And and there's some great moments because we keep cutting back to the alien, like watching him, and sometimes the alien's like, he isn't, he barely escaped that alive, and he thinks that it was a success or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it just gets to like they cut back to him, and it's just the guy's face, and the guy's like, oh, he's got a look on his face like, are you kidding me? So by the end of the issue, he just kind of goes, screw it, and he sends the signal out, and
Because he's sick of
thanks,
humanity.
Cracker Jack. Yeah, really helped us out there.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yes, and then there's the last issue, which I think is okay. Again, it's not one of my favorites, but I think it's a good extension of, because now we get to actually revisit some of these heroes
Right.
that we've already seen and build on it a little. And the shot basically is that Samaritan and Winged Victory, who is this Wonder Woman sort of analog, this mythical hero that's
Right.
a woman, they're set up on a date basically by their teammates on the honor guard.
Yeah. And the honor guard's like, we'll take care of
The honor,
everything
and the honor guard has
else.
said, all the crime fighting that you would have done, we'll do. It'll be tough, but we want you guys to have like a
nice
fun
night.
night. Yeah. And so half of it is them basically having dinner in their civilian identities, and the other half is the rest of the honor guard, like just barely getting all the things done that they have to do. You
Right.
realize like how much Samaritan and Winged Victory do, like when they fight crime. But what's funny is that there's a real clash of their philosophies,
Yeah.
because they start getting into it, and it's clear that Samaritan might be a nice guy, but he's kind of dull, there's not a lot there.
Yeah.
And Winged Victory is like this passionate person, but she has a very specific philosophy about why she does what she does, to the point where,
Right.
as an inspiration for women, she'll save a woman like before she'll save a man.
Yeah.
Like if, there's a woman on a train track and a man on a train track, she'll get the woman every time.
Right.
And Samaritan's like, I don't even understand that. Like, I'm trying to save everybody I can. And she's like, I don't hate men. It's important for me to send a message to women. And they
Right.
kind of like have a fight. Like it looks like the date's really going to fall apart
Yeah, it does.
until they both get a, signal or whatever. They turn into their super identities or whatever and fly away. But I just thought that was like taking the, like if you have an issue where like Batman and Superman are debating like who does it best, like I
Right.
inspire people, I scare the crap out of them. It's like, well, is that a good idea? I don't know. Like, it's not like you've gotten rid of crime just by being like tall, dark, and handsome.
Right.
So, yeah. What do you think about that issue?
I thought it, I liked it. It has its issues. The issue had its
Wah-wah.
issues. Just because, yeah, I think you're right. I think that Samaritan is a little bit boring, and I think she finds him a little boring.
Yeah.
But then like they really do fight about their philosophies, and they get like mad at each other
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, okay, well, you guys are both saving people, so what's the problem?
Yeah.
But
And they do, I mean, they make out at the end, so I guess it turned out somewhat
it
good.
must have been okay.
Yeah.
But
Do you agree with one hero's philosophy over the other?
no, I mean, I guess I understand her point of view that like she wants to be a role model for women and that she wants to save women and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But I also understand his point of view on like saving as many people as possible. I don't think that one's better than the other.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think that the issue is attempting to, to say that one is better than the other. I mean, they're both altruistic, and they both want to help out.
Right.
But the fact that they can have, a philosophical debate and come away at least, respecting each other. I mean, they're heroes. That's why they're heroes. Yeah.
True.
It's not as good as issue 4.
No.
Issue 4 is still
It's
better.
not as good as it is issue 4. I agree with you.
Would you recommend Astro City?
I would recommend Astro City. I enjoyed reading it. It's a fun read. You get a lot of... I think you get a lot out of the stories because there's deeper meaning behind them. Like I think you touched upon. And it really is about comic books.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's not about like Tom Strong, I feel, is about comic books. Like it's about reading comic books and it's about the experience of reading comic books. Whereas I think Astro City is like about, the tropes of comic books, like digging into what do we mean when we say truth, justice, and the American way, or something like that.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you feel that its meta commentary compares to like Watchmen or something else that's deconstructionist?
Watchmen is so heavy. And it's so dark. Whereas I think this is more hopeful. And I mean, even in the last issue, Samaritan and Archangel, they keep saying there's always hope.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think this is lighter, and I think this is airier and more hopeful for humanity and everything. And there's a lot about dreams in it as well.
Yeah.
So I think the meta commentary in it is not as demanding of the reader as it is in Watchmen.
Oh, for certain, for sure. Because like we said before, I mean, you can read it and do what I do, which is look for all the little parallels, or you can just read it and go, oh, kind of like that Samaritan guy. That's kind of cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas Watchmen is like, who watches the Watchmen?
Right.
And,
yeah. And there's definitely no God, and humanity is dark and black and terrible.
Yeah.
There's no difference between good and evil.
And
let's create a giant alien squid and kill half of New York in order to inspire people to work together begrudgingly. Yeah.
I love Watchmen. Don't get me wrong, but it's very dark.
Yeah. No kidding. Well, I would definitely also recommend it. I'm going to recommend to myself to get back on the horse, and because to be honest, like I didn't know it was still going. Like,
that's kind of amazing.
It wasn't until I checked; they're not selling it very well. I didn't know they were with Vertigo. I didn't know it came back in 2013. I thought that it was still off from like 2010 or whenever the last time it stopped.
Oh wow!
Because of throwing up blood. So. I got to get back on the stick and push through these things again because I bet it's probably better than it used to be.
Probably.
Knowing how good he is. Thank you, Mr. Busek. It's great. So yeah, definitely check that out. You can get it just about anywhere. It's one of those things too where I think you might be able to find back issues.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't think they'd be too. I mean, the market, the bottom's fallen out of the market basically on back issues, but I still like going and like. Digital comics are fine. I read digital all the time, but just something about having it, especially these, just holding them in your hand.
Yeah.
So check those out. What are we going to do next time?
Oh, that's a good question.
I'll tell you what we're going to do next time, so you should know at least, that the Inhumans show is imminent.
Yes.
So, clearly, we're going to have to read some Inhumans comics.
Yes, clearly.
And that's what we're going to do. We're going to read Volume 2 of the Inhumans.
Okay.
So, here's the deal. It's weird. There's been a couple different sort of, releases of their volumes, or, especially now with the sort of Inhumans, quote-unquote, renaissance. There's been a lot of Inhuman stories.
Okay.
But probably the last semi-classic, but yet modern, released in 1998, 1999 story would be the Paul Jenkins J. Lee run of 12 issues titled simply Inhumans. And from what I understand, that is loosely what the TV show arc is going to be based on.
Okay.
It's sort of a reboot or relook at kind of classic stories and themes from Inhumans universe. Maximus is up to his old tricks and is trying to take the throne from Black Bolt. And we go through this story by Paul Jenkins with, some great art by Jay Lee.
Okay.
So Inhumans 1 through 12, available digitally or on Amazon. Read it if you want to follow along with us, reading Volume 2 of the Inhumans next time on Comic Book Club.
I look in your eyes and I can see.
See Game of Thrones? That's how you do it. Nice and clean. We could have I could put 20 minutes in of just like footsteps, of just like the sound of boots crunching on gravel as you and I walk back and forth to the Red Keep.
There you go. Maybe have some dragons.
I know after all that time, they promised us that we were going to see, Cersei look at a dead guy, right?
Yeah.
So we had to do all that. But is there any reason that she just didn't have them all killed right there? They're all right there. If she's so ruthless, why not just do it? Especially if she's going to completely ignore their warnings. Why wouldn't you just kill them all?
She could.
Just kill them all.
Yeah.
Dead.
I'm not sure why she didn't.
Yeah. I mean, there'd be no more show.
No.
That's why.
That is why.
Plot armor's thick. It's the thickest.
It
It's
is
AC
very
minus 10 on that plot armor. Throw your Thaco against that. Well, if you want to check out our Thaco, you could find us on social media at Facebook and Twitter. And you can also find us on iTunes. If you search for Just Enough Trope, you can find our show page. While you're there, subscribe. Subscribe to the show. The best way to get it. Also, if you're there, leave us a review. We'd appreciate it. We love hearing from the fans and how you think we're doing. And give us a rating. That's probably the most important part. That's what plugs into iTunes' algorithm or algorithm or however you say that. Algorithm. That sounds like a good band name. Like in one of those bad direct-to-video Little Mermaid sequels, Sebastian would have like a backing band called Algorithm.
Oh, boy.
But anyway, for our Algorithm, we'd appreciate if you gave us five origin stories for the Joker.
Oh, okay.
None of which are true.
Sure.
And are just there to laugh at the idea that you could ever understand who the Joker really is. So maybe just 5 stars instead. We'd appreciate it. I think that's it. I think we are good for the night. One more time, we are going to be reading Inhumans, Volume 2, issues 1 through 12. Kind of a long read, so give it some time. And we'll be back on our next show to talk about that. And we're signing off. I'm your host, Caliban.
I'm your co-host, Mikan Hana.
Keep the geek fires burning.